Dr. Doireann O'Leary, thanks so much for joining me on the Mindful podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Dermot.
Uh, what's the biggest thing that you see coming through the doors at the moment in terms of parenting? Are there particular pressures or items that keep cropping up at the moment that you're seeing with your patients?
You know, what I see consistently, and not even just in the realm of parenting, but, as a very common presentation to me as a GP, is burnout and overwhelm amongst parents. They're overwhelmed with the amount of things that they feel that they have to keep up with, parental stress. There are so many things that parents are worried about these days, the usual parenting stresses, worried about finances, childcare, education, healthcare. They're worried about their children. And a lot of it now today in 24 is compounded by people working more than ever before. Men and women are working more hours outside the home than ever before. So they are under enormous time pressure demands. Navigating that work-life balance is very overwhelming for people. And then, there's a social media piece as well. That pressure to keep up, the comparison that can be generated by social media, the pressure to do things all the time, parenting strategies and activities to play with children or milestones. Just there's a lot of pressure on parents today for many reasons. And every generation will have its difficulties and struggles, because think back to our ancestors, and they didn't have running water, right? That was harder to raise 11 children in one house at that time. But there are unique challenges today, and parents are often overwhelmed and burned out, and they sometimes just come into me. And what frequently happens is a mom comes in and she explains her overwhelm, and we go through it all, and we want to make sure, just we're going to run out and rule out the like medical causes of anxiety, say like an overactive thyroid or something like that. And I say, come back in a few weeks and we'll follow up. And maybe some psychology signposting as well, if they need to link in with psychology or counseling, talk therapy. Oftentimes as well, they just need a few days off work, and they just need
Mhm.
that note just to say that they actually just need to take the foot off the pedal for a day or two. I often don't see them back, because people just need that release, that just circuit breaker, and to vent a little bit and to just be seen and be heard.
Is it
Um,
hard for you in terms of someone comes in, they clearly need to talk and they want to talk to you? That takes time. You've eight patients sitting outside in the waiting room. How do you, as a GP, as a carer, listen to them, let them feel heard, but whoosh them out the door quick enough that you manage to get to everybody else who also has their own issues that they're bringing into you?
Yeah, look, time management in general practice is one of our biggest challenges, and one of the things that, is most difficult about the job. Sometimes, Dermot, you do just have to stop being on the clock, and you stop and you listen and you talk, and you forget about the waiting room and you forget about the calls. And sometimes you do have to do that, if something really, if there are cases I can think of, immediately, a few coming through my head where something is disclosed, and you stop looking at the clock, and that's the end of that.
Mm.
But as well, sometimes, if somebody feels, say if you are under time pressure and you can't speak with somebody as long as you would like, letting them know that they're seen, they're heard, they're listened to, they're taken seriously. And one of the beauties of general practice is we can say, look, I'm really under time pressure here today, and we need to follow this up. Can you come back another time? And what I do as well a lot with these consultations is I refer to psychology. I have a psychologist who I routinely refer to, and people find her amazing. So oftentimes they'll go and they'll talk with the psychologist for that talk therapy piece, and she gives longer consultations. So, you can bring somebody back. You can refer to psychology, or sometimes you stop and you listen,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Um, I'm particularly interested in the sense of overwhelm that you mentioned and the root cause of that. I'm actually finishing off a book called Busy and Wrecked on this very subject, which comes out in 2025. So it's something that I've been kind of embedded in for the last 6 months or so. Would you say that the biggest pressure on the parents coming into you, particularly the mums, is that balance between their working outside the home and trying to keep things ticking over in the home? Is that what you're seeing the most?
I see that a lot, but I suppose that what every person's overwhelm will look different and
Mm,
will be different for different reasons. So you can have a mother who's extremely overwhelmed and, she's not working outside the home, but she's doing work in the home, and you see for some people they're overwhelmed because they're also taking care of older adults in the household as well. You've the multi-generational households, and they that can be a blessing because there's extra hands around to help, but also it adds a lot of extra stress if an older adult is sick or you're caring for them as well. So there can be people might find work stress, work-life balance is stressful. That is a very common one, Dermot. Or even in workplace bullying is a thing I see a lot, and people come to the GP about that a lot. And if anybody's listening and they're experiencing it, your GP actually can help. So workplace stressors, home stressors, financial stress is another huge one. And then there will be households where it's compounded, and it's worse, it's more magnified if there is abuse, or whatever abuse looks like for that person, whether it's financial or psychological, physical, coercive control. That's a big one as well. um so if they're dealing with addiction in the household, so
mm,
it can be for so many reasons that somebody is overwhelmed, and just feels like they feel like the whole responsibility of keeping the household going and caring for their children is their responsibility.
mm,
Um, and it's important for people to know that, yes, well, the parent is the sole caregiver, um, but share the responsibility of parenting,
mm.
with others.
You touch on this in one of your posts recently, and we'll get to your social media and just the amazing job that you do and the clear desire from people to watch the nuggets of wisdom that you give out. But a recent post you put up was about the mental load on parents, and particularly women. And it's actually something I literally this week have been writing on in my book, and it's something I was completely unaware of, and that's the imbalance. It's one thing talking about the imbalance between the physical work and the chores, let's call them, of the household and how well they're shared. And we all know that men are getting better at it, but it's still not on an equal footing. But something that's even more out of whack is this cognitive load, this mental load carried primarily by women. In fact, it's over twice as much. I read that it's 5 hours a week, according to a study in Utah in the States, 5 hours of mental decision making and of that load compared to 2 hours for men. And that could be decisions, planning, all the basically the stuff that goes on in our minds around running a home. And it was something I, as I say, was largely unaware of. And it really made me look at what my wife deals with in a different way. And I felt uh concerned, I suppose, and I guess have a lot more empathy to that load that she carries in her mind in terms of just running the household, planning the dinners, pickups. Where's our daughter going to be? Is there a sleepover? Like that can seem frivolous and unimportant sometimes, depending on how you see it. But actually, that takes its toll, and that's what you were talking about in the video, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you're describing it so well. And it's that mental load of those. It's a constant, to be a parent, it's constant decision making, for your children, and forward planning 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 steps ahead all the time, and anticipating what needs to come next. And it's a constant decision making, and it's invisible. And that's the thing about it. And I think that's why Like, look, as well, men are making these decisions as well, and men also have like their unique challenges. And like, we're generalizing here hugely.
Yeah.
Obviously, men carry a mental load also, and I know that men probably worry more about a finance in a household, and that's a huge pressure as well. But this mental load that we carry is so invisible, and it's almost as well invisible to us ourselves as well, because it truly is invisible work, but it's work nonetheless, and it can have a real impact it has an impact on our memory, our cognition, and it actually can lead to burnout. So it's
Mm,
not just we have to value this work and value what people are doing. So value work in the home as well as work outside of the home. Like if you're not working in the house, you have to pay somebody then to do that work for you. So there's a monetary value to working in the house, and a lot, and that's including all of those decisions, the laundry, making sure that there's food, dinner, doing the groceries, and doing all of that work. There's a value to that,
mm.
and it's valuable to, the family, it's valuable to society, and we really need to value it. And I'm delighted that, that post has made you kind of maybe think a little bit more about the bits that your wife um, is doing. And I think men do want to help. And sometimes I find for myself, if I'm overwhelmed by all of the decisions that are going on in my head, and I know they're invisible, so I actually just say them aloud then to my husband, say, look, these are the list of things that are whirling around in my head at the moment. This needs to be done, that. Can we split it in two? And like just saying it out loud like that really helps. And my
Mm.
husband is there and he's like, yeah, sure, I want to help. But he doesn't see it the same way that I do. He doesn't see, the bin needs to be done. We need to do that. The toddler's over there. So I say, look, these are the things that are going on in my head now. Can you take two and I'll do two? And he's like, yeah, sure. And a problem shared
Mm.
is a problem to have. So just, for me, verbalizing what's swirling around in my head helps a lot.
Mm. What's really interesting from that study that I mentioned, that American study on that mental load of parents, what they found was when men took on more of that mental load, became more involved in those micro decisions of running the house and all that, they actually reported far less stress and anxiety in their general lives.
Yeah.
And obviously it helped their partner, but that was something I think surprising that came out of it. It wasn't as if they were already stressed and now they were piling more things onto the buckaroo donkey. It was actually, they saw the opposite effect when they got more involved with that mental load and took on some more, just like you suggested that you do with your partner. It actually helped them to feel less stressed and less depressed in their own lives, and I thought that was a beautiful outcome.
I love that. And that's so interesting. And that goes to show the impact, because if a mom is sharing a mental load with her partner, she is less stressed. So then the household in general is less stressed, because
Mm.
if a parent is stressed, that has an impact on the atmosphere in the house. It has an impact on the children and their mental health. There's that bi-directional element of, if a parent is anxious, it can, impact the children. So if one partner is anxious, that will have an impact on the other
Mm.
partner. So sharing the load, being like a release valve and reducing the tension in the household can actually have a positive impact, not just on the parents, but probably on the children as well. And it's really true with it, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I do find that, that, and we're generalizing hugely, but, men, they do want to help and people do want to help you out. So if you're overwhelmed, and it's the smallest, most mundane things, I had my son on my arm one day and I'd like the grocery delivery in my app in the other, my hand in the other hand. And my husband said, add toothpaste. And there was just so, and I said, look, right, you do this, you take the toddler, I'm going to sort the laundry. And he's like, great, okay, good. So just say it, say what's going on in your head, and accept help,
Mhm.
ask for help and accept it.
I kind of feel like he was lucky to avoid the phone being flung at him when he threw in
Oh,
that
yeah.
toothpaste one.
I know.
Yeah.
I've learned you'll get a better outcome can you help me here? You know?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
Oh,
you use your words
yes.
as the
Yeah,
phrase
yeah.
goes. Do you find that parents are coming to you with concerns based on bogus information that they're picking up online?
That's a question I'm commonly asked. I don't see it too frequently, occasionally. But people, the online, what goes on online and what goes on in the real world, they're two different things. And, you know, there's a lot of hysteria and a lot of the online space is very dramatic, but what goes on in the normal day to day of general practice, I don't typically have people coming in worried about unrealistic worries or anything like that. I really don't, is the honest answer. I can think of maybe one or two cases in which somebody is worried, but they'll come to me with a genuine concern and talk to me about it in a very genuine way. Like, is this something I need to be worried about? And actually, what I find is people come in so educated and actually they're saying things to me. They said, Doireann, I saw this. I said, well, actually, yeah, that's true. And Doireann, can we talk about this? Because I think it might be that. And I looked this up and I actually think this is what's going on, or I think this is what my child has. Like, I can think of a mom who came in and English was her second language. So it wasn't easy for her to always say as readily what she needed to say. But she came in with a printout about a very unusual illness that I've never seen in a child. I said, I think this is what's going on with my son. Um, so I said, look, okay, we'll see. And this is a rare enough thing. So I would have to refer to pediatrics, refer to the hospital for another opinion. And she was exactly right. She was exactly right. So I actually find that people come in with they're educated. And I suppose there's a lot of bad things about social media potentially, but there are good things. And education is one of the best things about social media, I think. And people come in educated and they educate me as well a lot of the time. I can think of as just another, like, I think of it, this is kind of outside the scope of parenting, but a woman came in once and she was going through menopause and she really wanted to start testosterone because she had seen Davina McCall had started it. And, we went through the criteria and she met the criteria, we started and she was really happy. So that's what I'm seeing is people come in and they've learned something. They can educate me as well. And they know more and then they get more out of the appointment because they come in so educated and they have
Mm.
ideas, we can work on it that way. So that's kind of been my experience mostly.
Yeah, that's really refreshing to hear, actually, because usually it's painted in a very negative way and don't believe Dr. Google. But there are ways, as you say, of finding information that may not be 100% correct, but it could set you down the right path. And as you say, save time in the surgery.
Completely. And I totally disagree with the thing of, oh, don't look at Google. Like, so sometimes if you have anxiety now, you need to stop and, stay away from it. But it's empowering for people. And if somebody says, Doireann, I saw something online, I'm like, show me, talk to me, let's see where we're at. Like, let's get into it. And that's really helpful. And people are sensible about it as well.
Mm.
They really are. Common sense on this stuff does prevail for the most part. And it can set people on the right track.
Mm.
Or, if somebody says, I think I have something going on and I don't think it's what's going on, they say, well, let's work on it. Let's see what we're dealing with and let's take it from there. So, people typically use it sensibly, actually.
Mm. The way the world is set up at the moment, there's a lot of people relying heavily on grandparents for childcare. Do you get grandparents coming into you with specifically child related issues, whether that's to do with kids they're minding or maybe their own mental state as a result of having all this extra work maybe they hadn't planned on?
That's a really great point. What I can see is that it will come up in the context of something else. So if somebody is, if they are experiencing ill health for whatever reason, and we say, if we are advising rest or whatever it is, or if we're discussing why they are feeling stressed or burned out, it can be sometimes feeling overburdened with the care of grandchildren. I would have to say that's rare. Typically, what I do see is that grandparents are actually, their lives are so enriched and so they are so full of adoration and love for their grandchildren, and they are at a phase of life where connecting with children is something that's actually so good for their mental health. We know, like, in terms of stress relievers and longevity and our overall health, connection, to community, friends, family is one of the most important things. So I would say sometimes grandparents can feel overwhelmed with the responsibility of taking care of children, but that's rare. I would think more often than not, it's actually something that enriches the lives of grandparents when they're taking care of their grandchildren. But I think it's important for us as parents as well, when we are asking our own parents to help us, to remember and be mindful, that they are helping us out, and that they need care as well. So, the caregivers need care. So to accept help, but also be mindful of your parents, their mental and physical health. But for the most part, I would say it's actually something that grandparents love.
Mm. You touched on something really important there, I think, and that's the connection. Again, there's a fascinating study that started in the 1930s, would you believe, in Harvard, and they were just following people throughout their lives, and it's still going.
Yeah.
And what they found was that beyond our genes, beyond our upbringing, beyond
Yeah.
our environment, our work, our stress load, everything, beyond all of that, the key indicator of a long and healthy life were our relationships. And they found that the happier your and stable your relationships are at age 50, the more likely you are to be healthy and strong at age 80.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder, in the frame of parenting, are you seeing a lot of lonely people coming to you at the moment? You think maybe they're presenting with XYZ, but you're looking at them going, do you know what? I really feel like possibly a belly laugh with a great friend might go a long way here. Are you finding loneliness an issue?
Loneliness is an issue specifically with parents, and like that point about connection, it's fascinating, isn't it, Dermot? Really, more so like than you say than our genetics, like that connection piece in terms of our overall health is so critical. And parents do experience loneliness, and it comes back to the piece where parents are working more than ever before. And actually, also, what I think is fascinating, we're spending more time with our children today than previous generations did, as well. So that comes at a cost, personal cost of time to spend with your partner or time to spend with friends. So parents do feel lonely. I think it's up to 50% of parents can report feeling lonely. So you can be very busy with the busyness of life and at work, and running around and taking care of children. But amidst all of that chaos, feel lonely. So making time for friends, family, connection, even connecting with your own partner, or to another extent, connecting with yourself as well, time for yourself. You do have to eke out that time, but it's really important to do it, to try to stay connected to yourself, to your partner, to your wider family, and friends as well. It's so important to help dissolve stress, staying connected with your friends. And, if I'm going to meet a friend, like I joke like with my mom or whatever, I'm doing this, so that I'll live forever, and I've got to go and meet my friend. It's for my health. But I joke about it, but I know that it's true. So I work hard to stay connected with my friends.
Mm. Um, your social media does so many wonderful things for people. When I look at it, I see a very obvious service that you're doing, that people have questions. They may be small questions. They're probably doubting whether their mini concerns are worthy of taking up your time in your surgery. Do you think that what you do on your social media is, I guess, providing like a community healthcare service that we don't have access to a professional like yourself with years of experience without having to clog up the waiting rooms or the accident and emergency rooms.
You're being very kind about my social media page. And, it comes back to that thing that I said about like what social media is so different to the real world and to the real day to day of general practice. When I started sharing the social media piece, I had a very clear vision for what I wanted to achieve. And I wanted people to feel that GPs and doctors were approachable. So that people feel that like, okay, she's talking about this, and I can approach her and I can talk to her about it. So that was my aim, is that I wanted to kind of like break down that kind of wall of like, the doctor, and I can't go in and ask a question. That's what I wanted to do. And then I just wanted to share some information as well, because I used to see a lot of, maybe misinformation, or maybe not the full picture of information, or information that I felt needed to be builded upon. And instead of criticizing, other people's information that they put out there, I just wanted to put out my own. So the thing about it is that I can never fully share everything that I want to share. If you really wanted to talk about something, it would have to be very long form, I suppose, YouTube or something like that, which I have no plans to do, but I try to share little snippets here and there, wherever I can. I always feel like I can't share enough, but if I can hopefully help people to feel like there isn't this kind of big barrier between doctors and patients anymore, that they can bring these queries up with their own doctor. That's what I kind of try to do.
Do you ever get pushback from other doctors who think that it's not the way to be discussing medicine? Is there any snobbery around that?
There was at the beginning, there was pushback. Now there's pushback to my face. Now there may be pushback behind my back. Um, but not really, to be honest. Not really. At the very beginning, I started in about 2017. That's a long time ago now. A colleague did have difficulty with it, but I was very clear in my aim, and I was very clear that I felt that I was doing something good, so I kept going. But now there isn't much pushback. To my face, as I say. But
Well, everything I've seen and heard is 100% positive. So I definitely haven't heard anything like that. I was just curious. Do you recommend mindfulness and meditation to people? I was giving a talk to a lot of GPs down in Cork recently, and I was surprised at how few of them actually do it in their daily lives. But I guess it's something that maybe you find yourself recommending from time to time for people who are experiencing stress. What's your outlook on mindfulness and meditation?
mindfulness, I mean, it is so important. It is so important to take the time for it. And I suppose whatever mindfulness means for that person, whatever they would like to do, to incorporate mindfulness into their routine, it's so important. It's something I find as a GP, it's hard to get buy-in from people, I think,
Mm,
into it, because people will come in a very kind of in an acute situation, there's something, as I said, like for example, if there is a workplace bullying type thing going on or whatever, I encourage people so much, and I implore them, like please, I promise you, like if you sit down and do gratitude journaling, like it'll change your life and your brain, and please do it. But it can seem very lofty and esoteric, for somebody who hasn't kind of read about it or isn't in that space in their life. If I'm coming at,
mm,
if it's somebody who's completely new to it. But I absolutely do. I encourage, yoga, gratitude journaling, like even forest bathing, getting outdoors. I really do. Meditation is something that I don't do yet, and I feel like it's a skill that I need to learn because we tried it in GP training once. Actually, when I was a GP trainee, somebody came in and they were like, "Guys, you need to do this because it's great and it's really good for your health." But as soon as as I tried to kind of disconnect, and I've heard you talking about it so much, I'm like, I've got to put out the bins. I've got to do this. I've got to do. So it's a skill I feel I need to learn because I would love to do it because I know that, the benefits are just, they're there as clear as day. It's so important.
Yeah, well, I love that you said that because, I think so many people experience that because we're not used to being quiet, particularly if we have hectic lives and busy jobs and all that. And sometimes I think there is a preconception that if I'm having thoughts and I'm thinking of random housey stuff or to-do list items, that I'm just not cut out for it or I'm doing it wrong. And at the very least, that'll just kind of show you where your thoughts are at. So there's never any bad meditation. It's just the fact that you're taking a few moments just to sit and, either listen to the kind of things that are going through your mind or focus your attention on one thing, particularly if our mind is bouncing around into anxiety in the future a lot. Sometimes that little anchor can be really helpful. So I'm glad you said that because it's one of the myths that I love to bust about meditation is you're going to have thoughts and they will be about bins and the dog and your WhatsApp groups and all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
that's just part of it.
Okay. Well, okay.
Mm.
Well, that's really refreshing to hear. Okay. So I can just sit mindfully. And okay, you're going, yeah, because I remember at this time at GP training and I was like, I can't do this meditation thing. Oh God, the bids, So that's actually nice to hear. There's no bad meditation. That's really
No,
nice to know.
no, never,
Okay,
never.
I'm gonna do that because as well, what I find as well, if I try to this morning, I actually didn't have a whole pile of emails to run through. Um, and I was thinking, okay, well, right, I'll read something new. I'll, learn something new, make use of the moment. Whereas maybe now, from now on after learning, there's no bad meditation. I'll just take some time to pause.
Yeah, I love it. Finally, you're a busy mom yourself. You obviously got a busy life, busy job. What are the things that maybe you have to work on in terms of maintaining the best balance for you? Because, I talk about this in my upcoming new show, actually, that when I was stressed out and burnt out, I
Mm.
sat with a doctor. I went into my GP because I just didn't feel right. And when she said, "What's wrong with you?" I burst into tears. And I just wept in front of her for about 2 minutes. And eventually the storm passed. And I said, "Sorry, I think I'm just really stressed out and burnt out. And I don't know what's happening." And she said, "Me too. I'm really stressed out. I have a lot of patients out there. I'm at the end of my tether myself." We had this kind of sort of weird bond because we were both
Blind leading the
yeah,
blind.
but I was really conscious that she's a caregiver. She's a medical professional. She's in a role where she's meant to have all the answers for everybody else all the time. But it made me really aware that underneath it all, she's a human being. So, what are the things that you need to sort of give some of your attention to maintain your balance with the wonderful job that you carry out and all the wonderful things in your life?
I mean, I experienced, burnout at a point in my life as well, and I had that moment in an office of crying to somebody saying, I actually can't keep going, can't keep doing it. Um, and what I work on hugely, and that I really do, like I have my boundaries, and I implement them, and it might sometimes be perceived as difficult, but I know for sure that's my boundary and that's what I'm doing. And that's the way it's got to be for me to survive and to keep going. I mean, just in practical terms, there's a good example I can think of. A lot of GPs, we do ongoing GP education all the time. We have to stay up to date. I love it. It's a privilege. It's interesting. I love it. But a lot of it happens after work. And to me, that's a boundary I'm not crossing because I don't want to be on a screen learning at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I don't want to finish a day's work and then go and spend an evening at a conference. So for me, I will take part in learning if I can watch it the morning after on playback, or I will sign up for learning that happens in the morning times, or a Saturday morning, whatever it has to be. And that's just one example of a boundary that I won't cross. And I protect those boundaries, or evening times as well. I'm not going to work in the evening. So that's a privilege. A lot of people can't set those boundaries, but that's something that I do for myself that helps me. And I maintain my boundaries, and I stick with them. As I said, sometimes you might feel like you're being difficult. Um, I sent an email once saying I couldn't attend an evening tutorial because it's not good to be on screens at night, and I didn't want to do that because the evidence is there, that you need to wind down. I'm sure the person on the receiving end of that threw their eyes to heaven, but that's my boundary and I keep it.
I love that because people find it hard to set those boundaries. I think we all have inbuilt people pleasing tendencies.
Mm.
And those tendencies can often lead us down the road to overwhelm, where we're putting everybody else's desires and needs first. And I guess it wasn't easy to write that email. And my reaction would be, if I received it, I would be, oh, that's actually very true. And I would find that inspiring and go, so you can say something like that in an email. You don't have to come up with some terrible excuse or 5 excuses as to why you can't do it. Why not just look, these are my work boundaries and thanks a million.
Or something, as well. I mean, saying no, you don't have to give a reason as well if you're saying no to something. Sometimes just no, and that's it. That's something I do find it difficult to say no, but I'm working on it. So, what I've recently started realizing is if you need to say no, you don't have to give a reason. Actually, I can't attend, but enjoy, and that's the
Mm.
end of that.
I think it's a very Irish thing because we feel like if we don't have one really good, solid excuse, like, my mother's really sick, what we
Yeah.
do is we hand select, as the supermarkets like to say, we hand pick a group, maybe 4 or 5 really flimsy excuses and stack them on top of each other. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one of
yeah,
them might sound, good, or else just the weight of them all might convince the
yeah.
other person.
What I found actually is people will push back at that. They'll say, but I'll sort this out and I'll do this, so you're better off just leaving nothing.
Yeah.
I often think about, when we say like no is a full sentence. So there's a group of people in life and they say no is a full sentence. But then there's the other half and they wake up and they say never take no for an answer. And it's like these two, groups, and it's, but so I've stopped giving excuses. I just say no, thank you, and that's the end of that.
Mm. Well, I think that's a lovely way to just circle back to what we spoke about at the start in terms of your patients presenting with overwhelm, of being a parent, being a new mom, being a new dad, or maybe managing their own kids and looking after their own parents as well. And that setting those boundaries, being able to say no at first, even to small things, can be really helpful and just give us maybe that space that we need.
Absolutely, and it doesn't make you a bad person, or don't feel like you're, letting people down. Your parents feel a lot of guilt, shame, loneliness, anxiety. But really to be a good parent or the best version of a parent that you can be, you have to be the best version of yourself first, and that really is true. Like I said earlier, if you are stressed, your child will feel stressed. There will be stress in the household. So the thing of, and I think of it multiple times a day, it's like you can't pour from an empty cup, you have to mind yourself to mind others, and you deserve care as well. So to mind yourself in the first instance, like put on your oxygen mask first. And these are metaphors that we use a lot, but they're useful and they're powerful. You have to mind yourself to be the best version of yourself as a parent and as a partner. Start with yourself and mind yourself
Mm.
first.
And it's okay not to be perfect.
Oh, I don't like the idea of perfect. I don't like, nothing in life is perfect,
Mm.
it's
But as a
perfect.
parent, I think when people look, particularly on social media, at the sort of amazingly curated family Christmas pictures, we're all in the same jammies, or, and parents go, well, my house doesn't look like that. It's a kip, it's a mess. There's toys and nappies everywhere. I haven't been able to hoover the place for 4 days. My life doesn't seem to look like those people.
Yeah, and social media does, that's one of the bad things about social media is, this intense pressure, the comparison, not only the things like, the like the beautiful photographs, curated photographs of impossibly clean children who are all looking at the camera at the same time. Like, how does that happen? I mean, but and then there's the even parenting strategies, you're doing it wrong, or milestones, you have a 6 month old who's walking. um Try to, I suppose this is where coming back to yourself, knowing what's important to you in your life, and kind of focusing on what's going on in your own garden as opposed to looking at others, and knowing as well, that social media is, as I've said a few times, it's not a true representation of reality. Like, you might have on one side of the camera, they've taken the picture of the perfectly curated household, and on the other hand, on the other side, it could be they have their pile of rubbish as well. So don't um, don't compare yourself. And if you find those images overwhelming, or if somebody has an impossibly perfect life that makes you feel bad about your own, disconnect from that. Just consume online things that make you feel better about yourself. I always think, with social media consumption, we need to consume it almost like, alcohol, like in moderation and responsibly. So disconnect from anything that is making you feel bad.
Mm, I like the alcohol comparison. A lot of people on X just seem to be drunk now.
There is a lot of substance abuse going on, and it's just absolute chaos
uh,
over there.
Doireann, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, to join us all on the Mindful podcast. I think there's just really, really invaluable nuggets there, particularly for parents, but for everybody else too. So thanks for taking the time, and I wish you the best of luck. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Dermot. And I've learned that there's no bad meditation. So I'm going to take that with me. Thank you so much. It was lovely to chat today.